Hi everyone, Gerard Scarpacey here with another lesson. Today, part of our Professionals Who Practice series with our good friends at Pivot Point. You can see I'm working with a beautiful viola mannequin. And today I've got, a simple lesson, but one that I think is super important. Here we have a nicely cut kind of foundational or classic ladies layer. But it didn't really have any refining. It was for more of a kind of a classic lesson on basic shape, and I was going through mannequins in my collection and thought it would be nice to really just show the approach where you take a great balanced haircut, technically cut, dry it, and then do all the detail work. And again, this is a form of haircutting that I greatly have used over my career. I mean, there's obviously many different ways to do it. But there is a school where you build beautiful classic shapes, really clean, cross-check them, refine them, look for balance and technique, then dry them in a very simple way. In this case, I just use kind of wrap drying with the new vent brush. Super classic update. Got a great grip on the handle, made by Vest. Those of you that use the Vest 9 row will recognize that. And then after dried, I'm going through now and just trying to be really deliberate about what I'm doing. I think sometimes, we refine, purely visually, and we can kind of, forgive the word, but attack the hair. And here, especially since so much detail was put into the basic shape, which was cut, pretty much exclusively clean, I don't want to lose that shape. I just want to change it. So what am I doing here? I'm coming through, kind of pivoting off the crown, with vertical sections, and you can see the previous shape, the kind of strong lines from the basic shape. And then deliberately with my HB Pro dry shear at a kind of an angle that would create a concave effect when it falls forward, coming in here and putting like a concave piece of texture, a bit of texture here. Now why that angle? So when that hair falls forward, it should not only get more texture and movement because of the cuts, incisions into the hair, but because of the angle of the scissor being concave, if this is the shape and the angles are like that, when it collapses, I think it'll create a little bit more flatness. It'll hug down to the head a little bit more. So just being thoughtful about scissor angle, the depth. I'm going down, now this hair is maybe 2 inches long or so. I'm putting my fingers at the root. I don't want to go all the way to the scalp, but I'm going pretty far down. Probably 3/4 of the way. And the scissor on that certain, now you can see the angle. So when that hair falls forward, it should flatten and hug the head in a textured way. Very often when I do something like this, refine or texturize a haircut, I try to work from the top down, especially with short haircuts. I think there's a lot of work to be done around the edges. But I think one of the most important things here is to get the top where we want it. Now you can kind of see, look at the difference. Again, there's a little bit of product that was already in here, but look at the difference in airiness and separation on the one side that's mostly already been kind of point cut into. Deep point cutting, kind of a concave angle. I'm going to take everything on this side together. At first I broke it down into 3 independent sections. But you can see there's still some density here. It's one of the great things about these pivot point mannequins and the viola. It's kind of a workhorse for training. It's got enough density and it's placed really well into the scalp so that you can get a lot of lessons out of it.
Just want to take a minute and say hello to everyone watching. James Abualba is saying hello and Happy New Year, as well as Junior from Hawaii. Mahalo, you guys.
Hi guys, how you doing? All right, so you can see the one side with the kind of diagonal point cutting, kind of creating a concave effect. Now coming into the second side. And again, overall here, it's more than just kind of a couple of cutting techniques that I'm trying to share. I really want to kind of just go over that philosophy. I think very often people will see me razor cut or see lots of people do really textured cuts on when the hair is wet. And that's, it's a certain way of working with hair. Now there's another way that I greatly like, and it's kind of the way that I was trained, and a way that I still think is super useful, especially in the salon with really commercial kind of fundamental cuts, is to, work clean when the hair is wet. Work quickly and simply and get a clean, balanced shape into the hair. In this case, there was some like round layering on the top and some round graduation on the bottom. It was all cut clean as part of a kind of a fundamental lesson. Little detailing around the edge, but not much kind of interior refinement other than just checking the hair through. So, the point I'm getting at is, very often in the salon, I'll work that way. The hair will be washed. Client will get a fantastic scalp relief, treatment. Feel great. I'll put in a nice fundamental shape when the hair is damp, trying to work quickly and simply to execute a balanced, detailed shape. And then come back and do a lot more work after the hair has been kind of wrap dried. So here you can clearly see the angle of the scissor creating a concave effect, shorter to longer, deliberately so that when this hair falls down, it not only has more texture, but the weight will hug the head more. Yeah, that's really what we're going for here. Again, I can take this whole side kind of in one. Thinking about the best body position for scissor angle. I feel best, to get this concave angle. So I'm taking everything, on this side again because the hair is dense. I can see where those concaves are. And I just want to kind of open them up even a little bit more. And you can see the shape is still there, which is important to me because this was really, done as a technical shape. I'm going to do a little bit of that now over the crown here. When wrapping, I really wrapped around the natural movement of the head shape. So now here we have to think, what would be the angle of a concave? It has to kind of be shorter to longer this way. So when that collapses, it collapses kind of flat. So I really need to kind of think about my scissor angle. There's a bit of a corner here, which I just want to kind of finesse a bit. And by rotating that hair into a more comfortable position, I've got more control over it, Shape's already in. I'm not worried about distorting the shape, but I'm going to roll my hand a little bit. Think about the angle. Concave means shorter at the top, longer internally. It's just a few snips here, but well-placed snips I think here are going to make a big difference. That's what happens with, refining or detailing or personalizing. Any of those terms really describes it. You want to do less and get the effect that you're looking for. You don't want to have to recut a whole haircut or change anything fundamentally about the shape. You're really just dealing with the density, perhaps the corners, and creating texture and movement. So shout out to all my friends around the world. Hopefully you're doing well, and it's kind of been a crazy time, especially crazy here in the US, not only with our pandemic and our government situation, but I can let you know we're surviving. We're getting through as best we can in hairdresser fashion, and just waiting to be able to get back to work. Some of us here in California, hairdressers are shut down, which is kind of tragic because it's been proved over and over again that the transmission in a sanitary salon is very, very low. But we do the best we can to work with the law. All right, so here now working straight in, T to the comb. So I don't want to, really down here, I just want to air it out a little bit. I want to air it out. So rather than going in on diagonals, because that would change the shape on short hair like this, I'm going straight in over the comb. And when I do this, I kind of exaggerate the angle of the comb. Like as I come in, instead of keeping it really flat, I kind of curve it around. I think what that does, is it kind of scoops up some of the underneath hair and makes this even more like a textured effect. It's like rolling your fingers a little bit, which, when I first started hair cutting a very long time ago, Irvine Rusk was one of my first inspirations as a hair cutter, and he used to do this cool technique where he would take the hair in his fingers and short hair, and he would like roll it and cut it and get these really cool textured effects. So I think that's kind of stuck with me, getting that little roll Just kind of breaks it up. Now, if I was going for really clean scissor over comb, that this would have the opposite effect.
I want to say hello to Sasha Kramich. He's saying hello from across the pond, as well as a couple other friends from the UK. Catherine Humble is saying hello and good to see you, and nice to see that everything is okay.
Yeah, we're surviving here in the U.S. I mean, again, California hairdressers are, probably financially suffering the worst because we've had, the most stringent kind of lockdowns. We're in our third lockdown here. I think maybe the hairdressers in the UK have experienced kind of the same.
Yeah, Sasha's saying that they are as well.
In their third, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think there's any others. And again, hey, we all wish that we can get past this and get over it, and we're all trying to do what we can. But again, 49 other states here in the U.S. have been able to open and have not been, a major source of spread. But let's get back to the haircut. So working with this, over comb technique, you can see it makes such a difference in short hair. This was cut clean. And, again, it's just my own personal thing. My aesthetic over the years. I don't like the look of really, really clean lines and a finish. I totally get the idea that it's going to give a great balance to the hair and help you get a good shape in that's going to last and grow in well. But then I always want to deconstruct it. Now, it's just me. It's not right or wrong, but this is a method that a lot of people work with. All right, around the ear here, I want to get a little bit more shape. I'm going to put this in my fingers. I'm going to do something that I do very often when I'm trying to get this effect. I'm going to come in parallel to the hairline behind the ear. Now I'm going to use, notice how I use, can you get a good angle here, Kel, or should I turn this way? Maybe this is better. I'm going to use my finger to balance my HB Pro Dry. And again, cutting at diagonals here now because I want to remove more length. Not just going in T to the parting, but kind of cutting at a diagonal. And right up in here behind the ear a little bit higher, cutting at a diagonal. Now what I tend to do is begin to kind of rotate my hand up into the shape. So now I'll lift that up a little bit higher. And I'm putting like a real kind of textured graduation coming off the back of the ear into the shape. Now again, in the basic shape, not too much thought had to be given to that. It was just like, let's get in a good basic round graduation and then do the detail work afterwards. So you can see how that's starting to kind of build off the back of the ear in a very different way. Sometimes, I'll even come in with the comb if I want to get in a little closer.
Catherine agrees with you. She prefers a look that's a little bit disheveled. Sasha is really into the shape. And Junior, HB Pro Dry, is it in stock? Yes.
Yep, HB Pro Dries are in stock. These are made in Japan, not just Japanese steel. It says it right there, made in Japan. They're made, all of our scissors now, all the HB Pros are made by the same master, Takahashi-san, who was from the Hikari family and then branched out to create his own factory. And we've been able to custom work and custom design. It's taken us about a year or two, but now all three of our shears are made exclusively by Takahashi-san's scissor factory. And the AG, which is the top of the line shear that we make, is actually handmade by Takahashi-san. We said that we wanted this to be our top of the line, and he has been hand making those. And again, we've been doing very well for many years with sharing these scissors, these shears. We've had really great feedback over the past 6 or 7 years, and we just kind of keep trying to make the best quality at the most affordable price. So again, using that same idea here to get, again, I'm not carving out. I think this would have to have been shorter from the beginning, right? Because of the length that this is at. I don't want to carve out right to the hairline or it'll be so weighty. I probably would have went in considerably shorter in that case with the graduation, but I just wanted to kind of take the edge off. Now, here's a sneak peek at something that we're working on. We don't have any type of texturizing scissor yet. And this is kind of a prototype of something that we're working on. You know, to me, I don't use them a lot, but I will use them for things like this, the edge on thicker hair, or in this case, a mannequin. Mannequins always have thick edges, right? And the thing is, I don't want to put in a line. So see, I can close that and kind of move through without putting in a line. I think you can get a good clear. So, you know, not every texturizing scissor or shear works that way, but this allows me to kind of move and break up the edge. So great for getting hairlines to be a little bit more cooperative.
I think Sasha just asked a question right as you were answering it. Are you ever using notching scissors, Gerard? I love the way you're texturizing techniques.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest, I don't use them a ton. I really don't. But like, I use them a little bit for stuff like this. And here's the thing, like I can do this with a regular scissor, a solid scissor, but it's gonna take out more hair, right? I mean, I'm using it, it's like 2 blades is like a full set of teeth, and every time you bite into that steak, it rips it in half, where this is like having a lot of gaps in your teeth. So it's literally taking out less hair, so I can be more gentle. That's the way that's when I wanna use these. Like I knew I didn't need to take a lot out of this edge. I just wanted to take out enough that it would start to look a little bit, lay down a little bit better, I guess is what I'm saying. So just kind of tweezing around the edge there. I don't mind having some definition across the ear. You know, when I saw this mannequin, can't even think of when it was cut. I have quite a collection of mannequins in the garage. I remember that it was kind of like this Linda Evangelista, like 90s thing. So it was a little bit bowly and solid. And I thought, well, this would be a good one to just, you know, show how you can refine. So there was some definition cut. Here's a great example of, you know, like if I cut even this little tiny bit of hair, see that? No line. But the thing I like about things like this is if you do want a soft line, you can kind of open and close a whole bunch of times and get rid of some of that there and not get as strong of a line as you would with a blunt scissor, or, you know, and I can slide through here. And, you know, to me, it's the little things like this that, you know, I'm always talking about good to great with hair cutting. So this area here for short hair is a good to great area. You know, if this area is too thick, it's going to be hard to have some versatility around the face. So again, just coming in between the hairline and the fringe in the corner of the eye and kind of opening that up, taking out the bulk right here will really allow this hair, I think, see how it just kind of fits in so much nicer? And it still seems a little dense. You can just see the darkness. So here I'm opening and closing multiple times.
Sasha was wondering, do you find that there's a difference between notching scissor and thinning scissor? Does it have to do with the amount of teeth?
I don't know. I'm going to be honest. It sounds like a reasonable assumption to me. I think it's just terminology. And I mean, unfortunately, in our industry, there's so much terminology that's kind of random. So I don't know. I don't know if there's a technical difference. But I know, you know, there's like this particular pair, the whole objective is, you know, the way that the teeth are separated, the angle at the ends. This blade itself is actually quite dull. You see, I'm putting my finger on it. It's deliberately quite dull. So it just holds the hair, and then these ones actually really cut them. I think it's when this blade is really sharp that you can still get lines in the hair. So anyway, we're still working it out to launch our first texturizing, notching, thinning scissor. All right, so you can see the difference. Now this is the unrefined side, just technically shaped in. So now I have to kind of try to remember all those steps. So the first thing that I did was I came through over comb, T2. Now the reason why I'm not cutting on major diagonals down here is that I don't want to put steps in the hair. You know, you might be able to actually see when the hair is this short, if I go like that, you'd probably be able to see like a little notch into the hair. It could look very cool 80s Madonna. What was that video where she had kind of cool pixie that had all like kind of chop marks in it?
I don't know, maybe like a prayer?
Maybe. But in this case, I'm not going for that.
Michael Kling is wondering, have you ever done a whole haircut with thinning or notching scissor?
I have, you know, especially when I was first playing around, like, you know, so for those of you that maybe don't know, I started haircutting at Vidal Sassoon in the early 90s. trained and worked there for 10 years. Very much, obviously, in the Sassoon method, which was, building great shape, blow drying it, checking it to make sure that it was exact. Then in the late 90s, we started to really break the shapes down as well. So we would put in beautiful shapes, blow dry them, and then really, instead of making them exact, or blunt, I should say, because they were still precise, we started deconstructing them with a lot of pointing and slicing. And then I left Sassoon right after that period, and I just went wild. I ordered every notching, texturizing, thinning scissor there was, every razor. This is where my love for the razor came in, because I just found it such an effective tool, where the thinning and notching, it never really quite got me where I wanted, especially trying to cut a whole shape, like open and close, open. It just seemed like, for me, they were better at small details, And again, everyone's different, I can remember the Rusk method was incredible. They used a lot of different notchings. I'm sure they still do. But for me, I fell in love with the razor more so. And I've been using texturizing, notching, thinning scissors for detail work.
Yes, Michael Kling is saying he worked for Scott Cole in the 80s.
Scott Cole's someone who I had the privilege of working with in the 90s after I left Sassoon.
And Sasha is confirming he did a little research here. The thinning scissors are 12 teeth or more, and the notching is like a 4 to 6 tooth.
Okay, good to know. Good to know. So here you can see again, just really technically, deliberately. If you've been watching from the beginning, you can see there was a nice shape in here. And I tell you what, this is like my dream. Especially when I was a full-time teacher, I used to love when a student would put in a really nice, basic, clean shape, and then maybe they weren't advanced enough to refine it, so I would show them how to refine it. In a perfect world, I could have a whole group of hairdressers putting in perfect, basic shapes, and then I could just do the detail work, but unfortunately that doesn't work. It makes me think of, I read a little bit about like Leonardo da Vinci, Michelangelo, and they used to have these workshops where they'd have all their apprentices putting in the basic shape of an angel or something, and then they would come in and do all the detail work. But alas, I don't think it works that way. So again, coming up, scooping deliberately. So you see how that hair from there underneath is scooped in? Cal, can they see that? Mm-hmm. I think that just adds to the texture for this. Now, I'm not worried too much yet. I'm going to get there in just a second about grabbing it in my fingers and putting in a different shape around the edges. Right now, just kind of looking through the hair, meaning I'm looking to see where it's thick and where it's, where it's not so thick. On a real person, this is obviously a real area of concern because of, the bones, the way they project. A lot of people tend to have a little bit of thinness in this area. Right now, putting this in my fingers. And again, coming in to customize this, then pivot up. You really have to, I think if you just do it on the edge and don't follow through, it's a lot less fluid. So to me, very important to follow through, even with, texturizing. If you just kind of pop it in one spot, it's cause and effect. Something's going to happen above it and below it. And I think, another kind of good to great thing is to make sure you're following through all around the edge. All right, a little bit more, see what kind of lives behind the ear here. Then we came into this area. Let's go over the comb first, and then we'll go into the fingers. So T, and I can see, anywhere where there's kind of a line. So like right here, some areas might need more than others. And here's what I found to be true. If I do a beautiful balanced shape, and at this stage I'm not worried, is one side longer, is one side rounder? There's so much freedom here, and it allows me to do a haircut that's more customized and that my clients tell me grows in better. If I was to just kind of put in a wet shape, really, really clean, hopefully as balanced as possible, blow dry it and say, okay, thanks. I think what I'd find is they'd come back and say, hey, my haircut, didn't grow in as well as it normally does. Because this is, sometimes wet geometric precision cutting, it doesn't address these little quirks and little things that need to be addressed. it gets you a great foundation. But the refining, the personalizing makes all the difference. You know, if you haven't done a lot of this fine detail work, grab yourself a pivot point mannequin. This one here is the Viola, one of my all-time favorites. We used for everything in training for years and years and years. And they're available at pivotpointshop.com. We're going to have some later this year available at hairbrain.pro. We've had them in the past, and we're going to have mannequins again soon. For those, it's one of the items that's always searched for on our store. I guess we're doing all this education, and people want to try some of the mannequins to practice. But in the meantime, head to pivotpointshop.com. They've got great frequent sales all the time. And, you know, Pivot Point, Viola, and Erica are probably my two go-tos. Very similar in terms of hair type, and the main difference for me is the size of the head. The Viola has what they call medium head, I believe, which is more of like a normal size, where the Erica has a slightly smaller head. And that's not a bad thing. It's actually can be quite a good thing, because for training you can get, I mean, you could do everything that I'm doing here, but on a smaller head would be, you know, less hair, less work. So maybe it's a little less exhausting to practice. I mean, you know, instead of 30 sections, you do it in 24 sections, but you still get the same lesson. So again, working the same way on this side, looking at this area here. And again, you can see this kind of very, very soft whisper effect that this, I guess this has more than 12. So this is a thinning or texturizing scissor, not a notching. But I just love watching that hair density transform. It's probably, you know, what's kept me interested after almost 30 years of cutting hair, is just seeing something like this that was already a great shape. And again, you can go back to the beginning and see where we started. This basic shape was already cut in from a previous lesson. And here we're just kind of refining. How do we really refine and take that shape, and I think make it more customized. Okay, again, I'm going to continue to work with these because I want to do a little bit more fun stuff here. Just kind of lifting and breaking the ends up, getting them a little bit more airy. And again, since this leaves no mark in the hair, closing and pulling out. So again, working still to perfect these kind of working with our scissor partner in Japan, Takahashi-san, and really hoping to develop something like this. It takes a long time to get this stuff right, if you want to do it right. But hopefully something like this will be able to get out on the market within the next year. Opening that area a little bit more. So again, using these for real small details, really, more than anything. Breaking those ends up in the crown. Feels like you can kind of just maybe get a little bit more weight out here. I like the way the other temple is kind of collapsing a little. So spot detail. And again, this blade basically totally dull, which is the interesting thing. You see I'm running my finger on there? This is the sharp side. So this just holds it. So it only gets cut from the one side. Therefore you have no line. So, you know, it's interesting in Japan. I mean, they rely on so many different forms of these texturizing scissors that I think sometimes in Western hair cutting, we never really quite got there. At least I know I didn't. I didn't hear as much about all these little things. And but when you do go to Japan, which I've had the pleasure of doing, you can really get schooled in this stuff. So anyway, I'm still playing around with that concept, and then we'll be able to introduce it into our HB Pro line of scissors, all available at hairbrain.pro. Again, working, so you can see this, you know, great way to just work around the edge to just get that kind of petered out, filtered out quality with looking still kind of very natural. and I think more gentle. I think, because it's not a solid scissor, it's taking less hair out. So I can come in here around the edges and really get some detail in. I think I'm almost there. I want to just work on the fringe a little bit, the very front of the haircut. I think I might add just a tiny bit of product. I don't want to put anything too heavy in, so I'm just going to use a little gloss spray, something just light, just to see how the hair is responding. And then a little bit of the texture serum, just a little dab, mostly for the fringe here, because I want to kind of see where maybe I need to do more work. You can still, again, guys, bear with me, I'm getting in front because I don't have a mirror. I still feel like I need to get a little more weight out right there, so it collapses like that side. So I'm going to go to that first. And I think I'll just continue in the same manner, using a slicing technique in that area, opening and closing without closing all the way. And again, since this is not a traditional kind of club cutting scissor, I've got a lot more leeway. Let's say I need to just get around front. Getting a little more deliberate here. And that's, when it comes down to this, you really have to work with your eyes. There's not much you can do in your fingers to grab it and feel it. I mean, the basic shape was definitely pretty balanced. But now, could be like on a real person, obviously one side could be a little thicker than the other. One side can have a different kind of a calic or movement. There could be a scar on this side. Those of you that work, with a more mature clientele, there can be quite a bit of plastic surgery, cosmetic surgery stuff that I've had to deal with. That can be one of the hardest things to deal with. Like one side will never sit exactly the same as the other when there's been some cosmetic surgery in this area. Give me a shout out if that's ever happened to you. I know it might sound strange, but it does happen quite often. And then you really have to do detail work like I'm doing here to get two sides to sit together. Definitely feeling better. And you also have to know when, they're never going to be identical. If you say, okay, because if I keep going, I'm going to go too far. And that's, then you have to go back to the other side. So having that, I always say, you go on this when you're doing this kind of work, you should work for 30 seconds and look for 30 seconds. If I have a mirror in front of me, I work for 30 seconds or so, and then I stop, and then I look for 30 seconds or so. I think that'll save you from a lot of, really kind of challenges, so to speak. Because once you've taken it off, then you have to go someplace else with it. So just coming right into these longest pieces and just putting a few deep little snips any place where it seems thick. So again, relying on my eye, saying, okay, this piece seems a little thick. And here I'm going in T to the finger. One more time here, and I think I'll be just about where I need to be. I hope you guys have enjoyed that. Kind of a mini lesson, but I think a very important lesson. The hair was cut in a basic shape, kind of diagonal back sections around here, kind of a rounded graduation, but in a flat way. The top was a little bit disconnected and layered following the head shape. Kind of a modern basic layer would be the term that we used to use, a ladies' basic layer. But then what I wanted to demonstrate is, really refining it to customize it using the HB Pro Dry and hopefully our HB Pro Texture Scissor, which will be coming out in the next few months or so once we get that perfectly designed and packaged. Again, I want to thank you guys. I want to thank Pivot Point for the ongoing support here and creating incredible tripods like the universal tripod that we use I use almost every day, as most educators do. Incredible mannequins that we can work with, like the Pivot Point Viola. And if you are looking to get some of these educational tools, head to pivotpointshop.com. And if you want to try some of these haircutting tools, head to hairbrain.pro. Thanks for your support, guys. I hope you've enjoyed this lesson, and I'll be seeing you again real soon with another lesson.